Hey, welcome to another episode of Fougere Family Adventures. Today, I am fishing the Quesnel River here in Quesnel. If you haven't done so already, please subscribe to my channel. Now today we are chasing salmon. It's not very often that we have an opening for salmon here in Quesnel on the river. The species that are open today are sockeye and pink salmon. You need a freshwater fishing license, and you also need to buy a salmon tag. Now the salmon tag is a non-tidal salmon tag. It allows you to fish for salmon in rivers that are open at the current time. There are two places that you are going to need to check the regulations. Number one, the freshwater fishing regulations, and number two, the federal fishing regulations, where you will find salmon. The Quesnel River is located in Region 5A for the federal fisheries. There is an opening for sockeye up at Quesnel Lake right now as well. And this opportunity is a great opportunity to bring people out from your family, kids, new people to salmon fishing, and give this a try. So I've been asked what I use for salmon fishing. This is my Berkeley rod that I bought over 20 years ago, used for bottom bouncing up in the Kitimat region. There are many different ways to fish for salmon here in British Columbia. The most common method is by float fishing and trying to get those fish to bite. Now a lot of people say sockeye do not bite, and they more or less go by your line, they get hooked, and it's a food fishery for us. Okay, so a lot of people ask me what I use for salmon fishing. There's many different ways to fish for salmon. Today I am going to be bottom bouncing, and I actually might try float fishing in this spot. The river's a little bit quick here, it's fairly shallow, and if I float fish, I can fish a lot more area as opposed to casting out, letting my weight bounce down like bottom bouncing, and eventually my weight will come off the bottom because it's very fast here. So a float might actually be a better option in this spot. So what I am using here is a piece of pencil lead. That's it, right there. Now, some people will use three-way swivels. Some people will use elastic to hold that on. This is just the poor man's three-way swivel, and all I do is essentially I cut a piece off my main line, and I have a little tag end here. I pinch my weight onto the main line, then I tie the main line back onto the top end of the swivel, and I have my leader on the bottom, and that runs down to usually a 3 to 4 foot leader down to my hook. Now the hooks I'm using are size 1/0 Gamakatsu hooks. I like the red, and I'm buying the ones that are barbed. Now there's a reason for that. I make sure that the barb is pinched, but I prefer the shape. I don't know if you could see that there, I hope you can. But the shape of the barbed hooks, for whatever reason, they just have a little curl to them, and it seems to help hold that hook in the fish's mouth while being barbless at the same time. This piece of wool here is held on by a bait loop, and I like to use chartreuse wool in this color, in this water, because it stands out quite nicely. Now with sockeye, like I've said, a lot of people consider that sockeye aren't biting as much, and it is more of a food fishery. Some people want to catch fish for sport, they want the fish to bite, so they're using shorter leaders to your weight. You're using 1.5 to 24 inches. This yarn here, different species of salmon, everyone has their own methods, have different colors. So sockeye pink, I like chartreuse, chinook, chartreuse, blacks, different colors like that. Pink salmon, pink. So different wool for different species. Now I like to trim this. I can see I got a little tag end. I like to trim it so it's kind of egg shaped, so that the fish sees it kind of like an egg coming down the river. It also exposes my hook nicely so that if there is a fish biting on it, then I get a good hook set. Another thing to consider here, when I use the bait loop, it is a good loop to hold this wool on. The wool doesn't come off, so if you need to change the wool, you have to push the bait loop back, pull it out. Again, I'll show you that later. Or you have to cut it, retie it, which isn't very hard. You could do it in about 30 seconds here on the river. Another thing people say about this wool is you can use this wool you could put a spin and glow, you could put a corky above, and the corky, the spin and glow, holds this off the bottom a little bit where those salmon are swimming and they can see it, they can bite at it. So those things will help your hook float. I'm not using that because of the current that's pulling my hook down the water. The hook also, this yarn actually gets stuck in their teeth a little bit easier, gives you a better chance of getting a good hook set into the fish. You can mix and match the yarn, which a lot of coho fishermen do, or if you're coho fishing, a lot of coho fishermen are starting to go to beads, where they'll peg a bead just above the hook and the fish sucks the bead in, gets the hook in its mouth. So there are many different ways to do this, and we can talk about that over the years, but for now, I'm gonna get to fishing. Wish me luck. And of course, if you haven't done so already, please subscribe to my channel. Now we'll go over the basics of casting. If you haven't casted a level wind before, you'll see here on this level wind, we have a star drag. That's no different than if you're fishing the lake. You want to make sure it's loose, make sure you've got enough. If the fish pulls on it, you got a little bit of drag on there, but not too much. You don't want to pull too much line in a river. The river is going to make a 6-pound fish feel like he's 15. It's going to be a lot of weight pushing on him in the river. I believe this reel has been spooled up with 15-pound test Maxima Ultra Green. I think it's a little bit stretched, but I'm not 100%. I might have went and put 10-pound test on here for the jigging that I was doing, but I'm quite certain this is 15. Maxima Ultra Green is my favorite line to use. 15-pound test for this application is just fine. It'll cast nicely. If you haven't casted a level wind before, this level wind, you always want to keep your thumb on the spool. This is your release. You're going to cast out. As soon as it hits the water, I'm going to lock this up and my line will bounce down the water. Once my line gets below me, this weight's actually going to lift up and I won't be in the zone anymore. So if I notice that, I'm going to have to put a float on to keep me in the zone a little bit longer. Now, of course, I am fishing a tail out. It's the very far end of a tail out. Going to be a little shallower out here. The fish will come out of these rapids just below me here and they'll start to rest up in here. So a little bit further up would be ideal, but for the purpose of this video, I'm filming, I'm away from people, and I just wanted to give you an idea how to salmon fish on a river. So we'll make a couple casts for you. And then there's one more thing. I want to show you my fishing vest. Got a really great fishing vest. You can actually pack the fish out with you. I bring some garbage bags. I even load this thing up. I loaded it up with all the camera gear today, a bottle of water, a headlight, all my fishing gear. Everything is in there. Okay, here we go. You want to cast almost straight out in front of you. A little bit more upriver. Gets the water, lock it up, and keep your rod up in the air. Luckily the snags aren't too bad here. Now there are some snags here, so the concern here is losing your weight. I can't even imagine how many lead weights have been lost in the rivers over the years, and so I've been struggling with trying to figure out the best way to do this, and the best way would be not to lose your weight, right? So you want to use as little pencil lead as you can, and you don't want to be dragging on the bottom. Now you want to find an area that's got the least amount of rocks. Big rocks you snag up on, trees, all sorts of stuff like that. So you want as little amount of pencil lead as you can. When I cast out, I lift my rod up. I'm following this down the river. I want to be able to feel that pencil lead just tap the bottom. Now it's tapping a lot more than I'd want to, but because I'm searching this area, I'm going to be casting further, I'm going to be fishing closer. I'm going to use a little bit more lead for now and see what drift I like the most and where those fish might be hiding. Once I know where those fish are, I can downsize my lead. Number one, reduce my waste if I do lose it in the river, and save myself money in the long run. Upriver just a bit. Let it hit, lock, lift your rod up. Keep it at a 45. I'm watching that rod tip. I'll feel a fish tap tap if he bites. And now I can't feel anything, which means my lead has kind of lifted up in the current, because I am fishing quite a quick area of this river right now. Again, normally I wouldn't fish this spot. Fish a little closer, rod up, lock it in place. And as it gets in front of me, I'm just gonna follow it down. Keep it as tight as you can. You do not want a lot of slack in your line, because that is when your weight will hook up on the bottom. When you're casting a level line, if you haven't done so, you always want to keep your thumb on this spool. If you let your thumb off this spool as your line is going out, you'll get a bird's nest. And if that happens, I'll show you how to undo it. The general rule of thumb with a bird's nest is to just pull out big loops. Just pull it out, big loops, lots of big loops, and then gently pull, lots of big loops, gently pull. Usually you can get it if it's not too bad. Now we're running out of daylight here, so one thing to keep in mind, when you are putting your reel down on the riverbank, keep it out of the sand. Sand on a river can ruin your reel in no time. You do what you have to do. Prop it up. Prop your reel up. I'll usually put my reel down like this, prop it up off the ground. I'll lean it up against a tree. And even more importantly, leave your rod tip up in the air as well, because I have seen many people step on rod tips and break rods, and people get really frustrated when they can't fish. Learning how to read a river can be another thing that you should probably know. There's a lot to learn about reading a river. You can only show so much in a video. You can see down below me, there's kind of a wave here, and that can indicate shallow ground, usually some kind of an obstacle like rocks, which is really good to find because it will push those fish on one side or the other of an obstacle. Just keep that in mind. Narrow down the river that you're fishing and you can tune in to where those fish might be. So again, keep your reel off the ground. Don't let your reel get into the ground. It'll get sand, fine pebbles in there. It will ruin your reel. It'll ruin your worm gear here, where it lets your line out. Eventually your line will get stuck to one side, then you'll have to get a new worm gear, little pawl we call it as well. It sticks in there that guides your line back and forth. Keep this out of the sand. I can't stress that enough. And keep your rod tip up. Lean it against something. Keep your rod tip up, because you don't want somebody to step on your rod tip and ruin your day. Sometimes if I'm going further away from home, I'll bring 2 rods. It's not uncommon to break a rod if you're fishing for, say, chum or springs. If you're not paying attention and you've got your rod bent right over like this, you usually break the tip of your rod. There's many different tips I can give you. I'll try and pack them all in here for you, but I'm sure I'll have to make more videos to help you out. Another thing to consider, and it's a very big thing, is where are you fishing from? The river here is quite shallow in front of me, so if I slipped in a little bit, I might be okay. But the bottom here, I can see some rocks are fairly clean, but just below that, the rocks look a little slimy. So if I get into those rocks, I might lose my footing. I might end up down the river and pinned up against a rock or underneath a log. I don't want that. Be very mindful of that. Be very mindful of the bank. The bank can be really loose. This bank doesn't look really loose. It's straight down, kind of at a nice angle. But if the bank is straight up and down and you can't see into the water, stay away. There's been many anglers in the past that have slipped because the bank has given way. They've ended up in the river, and they're not with us today. So be very careful around these rivers. Keep your kids close, and if you're wearing waders, wear a wading belt, and let somebody know where you're at. After hours of casting, you can get very tired, very complacent. That is usually when you end up making a bird's nest. So if you're getting tired, I would recommend you take a break, unless you want to take a break untangling a bird's nest. And watch the river. Watch for fish. Not really many fish showing themselves in this river right now. And when the fish are in here, they should be rolling around. You should see the odd ones swimming up the bank. A sockeye will swim in 2 to 3 feet of water, so they could be right in front of me. Now if that's the case, I'll be putting a float on, like I talked about earlier, and I'll float fish this whole drift right here. You're float fishing, a lot of people, they still get in this mentality that you got to have a 6-foot leader, a 10-foot, 12-foot leader. You don't have to. Once you narrow down to where these fish are at, all you're trying to do is put it in front of their face. So even an 18, 24-inch leader float fished for sockeye, pinks, whichever, it will be effective if you're in the right zone. Shorter leaders, easier to cast. You get these guys on the lower Fraser, I'm sure they're doing it still. They're using 12-foot leaders, 12-foot rods, and the rod's up in the air, the hook is touching the ground still. There's so much leader there. They're searching the area trying to find this fish. Oh, that's definitely a 10-pound cast. Epic fail. Okay, definitely going to be changing this line. Probably not for this sockeye season. It should still work for sockeye and pinks. I am doing a fall lake trout fly-in fishing trip, so stay tuned for that. But I hooked my vest. I was trying not to hook a stick that was on the shore. That is another problem that we face when we are fishing on the banks of a river. Look out behind you. And I knew to watch out. So that's a fairly easy one here. So it should pull out quite nicely. And I'm gonna grab my line. And my hook snapped on me. So you pull and pull and pull until you hit a knot. Now I don't think I'm gonna have that on this one. But if I hit a knot, then I'm gonna grab it and I'm gonna pull this out. It happens. And if you think it's not gonna happen to you, it will. So be ready. I've spent many hours on the edge of the Fraser River untangling these, and my uncle just kept fishing, catching fish. So he taught me a lot of what I know. I've learned a lot from going up to Kitimat. It is a different fishery. Almost sounded like I heard a fish there. And there are many ways to fish for salmon in British Columbia. Just make sure you're following the rules. And again, if you haven't done so already, please subscribe to my channel. Stay tuned. So with my line snapping because I got caught on actually my tackle bag, I was trying to avoid that branch there. I'll show you my tackle bag right now. I'll put on the chest mount. We'll do a walk and wade up the river. And I'll show you just moving around, watching your steps on the river. It can be very dangerous, so be very careful when you're walking out here. Okay, let's show you my salmon gear. There's my reel there, trying to keep it off the ground. And don't leave any fishing line on the shore. A lot of people leave used fishing line on the shore. I'm gonna go into my vest here. I got a bottle of water. I've got 2 main pockets. One thing I can tell you, if you are on the river, see there's some old fishing line I got in there. I forgot to take out of my vest, but I always put it in there, and I always take it out when I get home, clean out my vest. Got my pliers. I got a little bit of tag end here, so I'll clip this into here. Be mindful of what's coming out of your vest. I will retie my weight here. It just snapped there as it caught on there, so it's getting a little bit weak. I've caught a lot of lake trout on this line. So you can see here, this is my pencil lead. There's actually a hole in the pencil lead when you take it off the roll, and you open it up very gently and then you put it on. So this is where the lead is. That's my main line side. Sometimes you could do what I do. You could pre-tie the pencil lead with the swivel, and then you can easily get out here. Like I said, a lot of people use rubber bands, but that's just more stuff to fall into the river. So quickly retie this here. So that's that. That is the setup. That is main line, weight, and then leader on the empty side. It goes down to my hook. And again, I got multiple colors of yarn. I always have different colors of yarn. When you put the yarn on, it'll come back, and you want to trim off the little tag ends. So I have a pair of scissors in my other pocket. A big tip here is to always, when you're done, always zip up your vest. I don't know how much tackle gets lost or left behind when you don't zip up your vest. Okay. Here's my other pocket. That's where I've got some yarn, I got some scissors, I got a knife. So if I have to, then I could just trim it up. When you put this yarn on, you need to get it wet first, and then a little tag end will form, then you can ball it up. Once this gets in the water, it's gonna look nice again. A little bit of a walk and wade now. Now, always check your area and make sure you didn't leave anything behind. Pick up any line, pick up any garbage you've left. I see a lot of garbage in salmon season. It's really disappointing, but I think if everybody works together, educates people very gently. A lot of people, when you go to salmon fishing, they get very aggressive and they don't deal with each other well. They're all fighting for a resource on the river. And we need to work together. We need to help keep our area clean. We need to educate everybody politely, not yelling at each other, so that we can come back and enjoy this. All right. So walking up a river like this can be very treacherous. I'm slipping already. Now, the more populated areas, like say Vancouver, these trails are well groomed, well walked, and there's no troubles. But don't let that fool you. Rivers change direction every year. The way that the water is, the way that the gravel is, can be very dangerous. Be very careful, watch where you're going, and you should be okay. So you don't have to be right at the river's edge. You don't have to even be standing in the water. A lot of people will stand in the water, and sometimes by doing that, you're actually scaring the fish away that could be coming up right in front of you. Again, you cast out. Depending on the speed of the river, you can almost cast out straight in front of you. If you're bottom bouncing, the further upriver you go, the further upriver you cast, the more likelihood you will have bow in your line, you'll have slack, and you'll get snagged on bottom. So just lock your reel and let it bounce. One last tip here. Fished a lot of rivers, and this comes in handy. If you don't know what that is, that's a piece of rope. Find yourself a good length of rope. And if you find yourself a spot where you can't build a pool, like some people will build a pool in the water, if you can't build a pool in the water, tie this through the fish's mouth, and you can hang this off of your person, or you can tie this onto a log or something like that to keep your fish in the water, keep them cold. Always good to pack a rope. So I hope this video has helped you learn a little bit more about salmon fishing. Stay tuned for a few more of my videos on salmon fishing that I will make for you. And if you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask. I can either answer them on the video or make another video for you. And I sure hope this video has helped you. And if it has helped you, please give it a thumbs up. Please comment. Let me know that it's helped you. And please don't forget to subscribe. It helps me make videos for you and others who want to learn. Now when a fish bites, you can see your rod will tap a little bit different. It's hard to explain until you feel it a few times. Having a sensitive rod, keeping your line tight, keeping your rod up at a 45, that keeps your line straight down, keeps it kind of off the bottom, and allows you to get a good hook set into that fish if you need to. Uh-oh. That's a good snag. So that's a good example. Pulling up, nothing. nothing. So you can play with it, you can let your line out. That'll create a bow in it. It'll allow you to kind of get something off of there. You know, you can pull your line upriver if you want. No. So the best way to do this is to point your rod straight at your snag, get a couple turns in, tighten your drag, and pull straight back. Your rod straight back. Unfortunately, I'm going to lose some lead here. Sometimes I won't. Now I'm going to turn. You don't want to be facing it. I'm going to walk upriver, and it just broke. So I just lost it. We're going to retie this for you really quick here. Here's my vest. I have a bear bell. You can bring your bear spray if you like. This pocket's got all sorts of wool in it. Same with the other pocket. I've got floats, I've got flashlight, extra leader, hooks, all my inside pockets for later. And everything that I'm using, I use these 2 zippered pockets on this. Now this vest here is very fancy. We used to call them Thompson Rivers vests. I don't know what they call them now, Fred's vests. It has a back pocket right here where you can store extra goodies, food. It has a back pocket. This is the great pocket. I'm not sure if you can see that. It has a pocket that wraps around your whole back. And I've got my water bottle here. I'll have a drink of water. And you can put your fish in here. That's where you put them. So you put your fish in your back and you pack them with you. So let's see. Now if I've lost, there's my main line. Okay, so I got my main line. I'm gonna get ready to retie. Now I do have pre-tied lead in here. This is what the pencil lead looks like if you were to buy it in the store. Pencil lead looks like this. That's a full roll of pencil lead. Back when I bought this, it was $3.99. I think this is the 1/4 inch pencil lead. This is the pencil lead just about used up. And this is a pre-tied pencil lead here. So I'll show you really quickly. Here's my pliers. I don't know if you can see that, but that's the hole there. So you unroll this like this. You unroll the pencil lead to where you want it. Figure out how much weight you need. Then you're going to come in with your pliers and you're just going to come in. You might need a little bit more. And you're going to just pinch it. You're going to nick it ever so slightly. Hopefully you can see that. A tiny little nick there. A tiny nick on this side with your pliers. And then you're going to move it back and forth. And that will open this pencil lead up. So you'll have a hole all the way through. Put that to the side. We will take the main line. Here's a swivel. Some old jigs in there. I didn't have time to clean up. Some old beads. This is some of my stuff here. I got beads. I've got bobber stops. An old jig head from, I think that was coho season, chum season, and lots of beads, lots of hooks in here still as well. So I can probably grab one of those hooks out, swivel, put that away. Now first is the swivel. I'm going to tie on the weight. That. So what I'm going to do after I tie the first piece of line on, I'm going to measure up. You want to leave a little bit of line out the back end of this weight. Now there's a reason for that. The reason is if you get snagged up on the bottom and you've got it pinched down enough, this weight will pull away a bit and you can actually save it and you can put it back on, crimp it a little bit more, and you can reuse the weight. So you don't lose as many weights this way. So I will pinch this up. So just with your pliers, you're going to pinch. Another thing to keep in mind when you're using this pencil lead is to keep your lead as straight as you possibly can. Pinch, I like to pinch it twice, and then I move it down on the the swivel just like that. So keep it nice and straight. Then we're going to take our line here. That's our main line, goes on the weight side of the swivel. We're losing light quickly. My old eyes can't seem to see very well. That's one line. Okay, so that's tied on. Now I need a leader. Grab my leader line. Probably grab about 3 to 4 feet. Cut that off. Push that back in. Now what I'll do first is I'll grab my hook and I will check. It still has a barb, so I will pinch that barb really good. You're not allowed to fish with the barbed hook in freshwater rivers, especially for salmon. Pinch that barb. Now, for quick reference, if you want to learn how to tie one of these hooks, you can look up one of my videos for tandem hooks, double hooks used for kokanee. You can only use a single hook in freshwater. 6. It tells you, or I should show you there, I should say, how to tie this. And always wet your knots. Wet it. Pull tight. Pull it tight. I always grab the hook with my pliers. Give it a good pull. There's some excess line there, so I will trim this off. And again, make sure you watch your mess, so trim it off into your bag. Okay, that is your bait loop. Now you can actually pull this bait loop back and you can open it up like this. That's for our yarn. We'll do that in a second. You don't want to lose your leader, so you want to tie this onto your swivel right away, and then we will get to our yarn. I am not a tag trimmer. This tag's a little bit big, but I usually don't trim my tag ends. So there you go. Some people do, some people think it's faux pas if you don't, but I don't care. Take your scissors, 2 pairs of scissors, take your yarn, cut about 1 inch or 3/4 of an inch of yarn. I like 2 pieces. If you're mixing yarn, you can actually mix 2 colors. You can push them together. Works good for coho fishing. Open up your bait loop. Put your yarn in, make sure it's about halfway. So you can see that they're halfway. I'm going to push that knot right up to the eye. I'm going to make sure it's pulled right up to the eye. Okay, so that's a fresh yarn. We have to get it wet now. We're not done. Before we do that, I'm going to close up this pocket. Always close your pockets. Okay, we're going to get this one wet. Just get that yarn wet. Okay, now that you've wet your yarn, you'll take your yarn and you'll pull on it like this, and you can see that you have a little bit of a tag coming. Keep pulling on it a bit more, and you may have to do this 2 or 3 times, but trim it so that it forms a nice round egg, and put that excess into your tackle bag. Okay, keep everything in your tackle bag, so trim it so you got a nice little egg. So there you go. Got to show you how to tie one of these up on the river. Took my time there. Normally I'm not talking, I'm just fishing. If you haven't done so already, please subscribe to my channel.